Hey guys, and welcome to another lesson. So today we're going to be looking at how to put strings or restring a Fender Stratocaster style guitar. Now this will also apply to any guitar that has a 6-point trem or just your standard trem with a trem cavity and 6-hole through back block. So essentially tremolo systems or bridge systems that have tremolo arms this will work on. I wouldn't recommend this tutorial for Floyd Rose because those are set up a little bit differently and will require a bit more technique. So I've already taken my strings off, but if you haven't had your strings taken off yet, all you need to do is loosen your tuners or your strings until the strings are rattling, hold down at the 12th fret, and snip every single string. If you want to make sure the trem, if you like to have it floating, that way you can use the whammy bar. If you want to have that not go out of place, you can stick a couple of business cards underneath. Mine is direct mounted to the body, so I have the springs tightened as much as I could so that I don't actually have to worry about that. So strings off and we are ready to go. The couple things you'll need are, of course, a new set of strings. I'm going to be using Diodario's 9 to 42 gauge strings. A link will be in the description for everything you'll need. The next thing you'll need is wire or string cutters. If you don't have a tool like this for actually cutting the strings, you can use wire cutters. And if you're a kid, of course, use adult supervision while doing this whole process because doing this can be a little bit difficult and it's good to have someone observing to make sure you don't hurt yourself or your instrument. Now, attached to my string cutters is a string winder. This isn't 100% necessary. It does make tightening and loosening your strings much quicker, but I'm actually going to be using this and I do highly recommend it, especially since it's a tool that you can use for a very long time. I've had this probably for about, I would say close to 12 years now, and it's still going, so highly recommend this. Then you'll definitely need a tuner to make sure your guitar is in tune and ready to be played. Even with new strings, if the guitar is out of tune, it will still sound bad. So make sure you have a tuner. I'm going to use a clip-on headstock tuner, but you can always get away with just a free app to tune your guitar as well. Either one is sufficient for what we're doing. Lastly, again, not necessary, but something I highly recommend is some finger ease, or string fuel is another one by Music Nomad. But this is essentially string lubricant. So after we put the strings on and we tune them up and stretch them, we want to make sure that they're lubricated and moving smoothly over the nut and the bridge, so we can use this to keep the strings feeling alive and new. You can apply this before and after you play the guitar, as well as before and after string changes, and it's just a great product overall. I'm going to go through the process of showing you the low E string first. So unwrap the strings. Mine comes in wraps of 2. Some string manufacturers will wrap them individually in their own little packages, so just make sure you're grabbing the low E string. So mine's going to have a gold-ended ball. And I'm going to take the guitar and I'm going to look at the back. I'm going to find out there's 6 holes in my block for the trem system right here. So the one at the top is going to be my low E, or the one closest to the top of the guitar. And the one closest to the back, or the bottom, is going to be my high E. And then everything in between is just an order. So I'm going to stick this one into the low E hole. Sometimes you have to move it around a little bit, twirl it, but then you're going to see it sticking out of the other side of the guitar, like so. There's going to be taking a lot of movement of the guitar. Right now it's just resting on my shoulder. But once I've done this, I can go ahead and pull the string all the way through. Pull on it, make sure it's all the way tight, look in the back to make sure the ball end is through the block, because if it's on the outside of the block, it'll slip while we're tuning and tightening. And while that isn't going to be the end of the world, it is better for that not to happen. Once I've done that, I want to keep pulling it tight. I'm going to take this end, I'm going to line up my tuning peg with the slot on the nut for the string it's supposed to be holding, and then I'm going to pull the string through that peg. Now I'm going to pull it all the way tight, but I do want to give it a little bit of slack after I do that to make sure that I get a few wraps around the peg. So all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a 5th fret's worth of slack. So I'm going to pull up at my 5th fret, and I'm going to stop there. And this is what I'm going to do for every string on this guitar. So I pull up here, and then I'm going to pinch the end of the string at the peg up here. I'm going to pinch it and come up so that it's snug around the peg and hopefully won't slip out. Now I'm going to pinch the string at the nut so that the string isn't easily going to slide backwards, which is what we want to avoid it doing. We want it staying put at the peg. I'm going to take my string winder. We are going to turn the tuning key counterclockwise. Okay, and if you don't really want to think about clockwise or counterclockwise, just remember the string should be wrapped going with the most of the string, or the wrap going towards the inside of the headstock or down toward the floor. If you have something with the tuners like some Ibanez's and Chapman's will have on the bottom, they should be going towards the top of the guitar. And we're just going to wrap the string. We want to make sure that this part that we pinched is going to stay on top of the string, and every wrap we do, we want it to go underneath the previous wrap. Okay, so we just keep pulling the string tight, making sure every wrap is going underneath itself, and we should have a nice spiral down. And typically when I do this, I will get maybe between 2 and 3 wraps on every string. So I'm just going to do this until the string starts to tighten up and make what sounds more musical than rattles. Okay, so that didn't take too long. I'm going to pinch the string up again, and now I'm going to cut all but about an inch off of the string. I'm going to put that to the side, and now I have gotten one string on my guitar. I could go ahead and tune it right now, but usually I wait to do that at the end because I will be stretching the strings. By leaving this little bit at the end, it allows our strings to stretch, and if it does slip, we won't end up pulling the string off the tuning peg. So I recommend leaving this until the very end. So that process we repeat for all 6 strings, so I'll go ahead and speed through that for you so you don't have to listen to me talk or watch, but it should be pretty quick, and then we'll talk about the last couple steps of getting the strings on the guitar. Okay, so I paused the speed up for a second because I wanted to point out something about the string trees at the top of the guitar. So that's these 2 little metal pieces up here. And essentially what we do is some guitars will have 1, some will have 2, some don't have any depending on the way the tuning pegs are set up. But when we get to, on this guitar for example, the D, G, B, and high E, we just want to make sure that when we're tightening the string, we are making sure the string is underneath the little hook or ball of the string tree to give it proper downward pressure going into the head of the guitar. With that being said, I'll go ahead and keep speeding up through the rest of the process. Okay, so I've gotten all my strings on the guitar, so it's time to tune the guitar up. I'm going to take my headstock tuner, I'm going to clip it to the head and turn it on. I'm not going to walk you through the steps on how to tune a guitar because I do have a video dedicated specifically to this topic, but just know I'm going to tune the guitar up real fast and then I'll show you exactly what we're going to do after that. Okay, so now that the guitar is tuned up, we can stretch the strings. If your trem is floating in any way, or if you have like a Strat style bridge that's pulling up, it will move a little bit. That's not dangerous or anything, just know that that will happen. But essentially to stretch the strings, I'm just going to grab each string and pull a little bit towards the top. Even my bridge being fully tightened down is moving a little bit because of the springs in the back. And the reason we do this is to break up any unwanted tension in the nut or the saddles. Because when we bend or play the guitar, we are pulling the string in between those 2 points. And if they don't slide exactly where they were before, the guitar goes out of tune. And over time, strings do stretch as well. So by doing this, we allow the strings to no longer stretch nearly as much and hold tune much better as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I just stretched all my strings. I'm going to tune it back again, and I'll do that a couple of times, which I'll speed through for you guys. Okay, so what you see right there is why you don't want to pull up too hard. My high E string actually broke when I was stretching the strings, which means I do have to get a spare out. I usually keep about 2-3 sets on me at all times, so I will get a spare out and replace that string. But do be very careful, especially if you're using the same gauge as me, 9 to 42 or lighter than that, maybe 8s or 7s. The strings can tend to be very delicate. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that to the side and replace it real fast and finish up the stretching and tuning of the guitar. Alright guys, so after you've done that a few times, you should notice that the strings aren't loosening nearly as much when you're stretching them. At that point, you're pretty much done with everything that you need to do. We just want to snip as much of the string off as we can that's sticking off the peg so that we don't get poked, which I actually did. If you notice in the speed up version, I did stab my thumb, which is just a problem because my hand's shaking. I have trouble reaching over sometimes and I'll bump them. So be careful with that. It hurts no matter how strong you are. So we're just going to snip the ends of these off. Pretty simple. And then when we're done with that, we can lubricate our strings and get to play. So I'll finish this and show you just how we are going to lubricate, which is probably the easiest part of the whole thing. Now, if you don't have string lubrication, that's all you need to do to get the new strings. But if you do have string lubricant, the one I mentioned by Music Nomad, which is called String Fuel, goes on kind of like a stick of deodorant, but you just kind of go over the strings back and forth, and then it has a little cloth that you wipe the strings off with. On finger ease, you just give the can a little bit of a shake, and then you're going to point the nozzle at the strings and spray down the strings entirely. Once you're done with that, you take a clean cloth and you wipe the strings off. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching the lesson. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next one.